more open, collaborative, and transparent budgeting process than what we have experienced over the last 8 years. We've been meeting since February to start these conversations, to work together, and we have implemented much of your feedback, and I thank you for all of your assistance. I especially want to thank and acknowledge Business Administrator Jennifer Gonzalez and our entire senior staff here at City Hall. Not only have they embraced this change, they've leaned into it. They've worked incredibly hard to put forward a budget that puts Hoboken on a path towards long-term fiscal health, while continuing to deliver the services that our residents rely on every day. Many of us on this council knew the budget was going to be difficult this year. It was not until I was sworn in that I got to see the full picture of what we were dealing with. Quite simply, Mayor Bala left this city far less financially stable than he inherited it. My job is to pick up those pieces and put this city back on solid footing. This is what this budget begins to do. We are making real changes. No longer are we tolerating redundancies in City Hall, and I thank all of you on the council for supporting the reorganization of departments that makes us more efficient and more accountable. No longer will we be entering into agreements without understanding their long-term impacts, and I thank the council for supporting your efforts to revisit and renegotiate the collective bargaining agreements that were negotiated under the Bala administration. On tonight's agenda, I am asking you to continue the progress that we have made by appointing Labor Council to dive directly into these negotiations. And no longer are we awarding contracts in a way that ultimately costs taxpayers more, particularly when it comes to health insurance consultants where poor structure and oversight drive up the costs. And no longer will we allow the city to be dragged into unnecessary and costly litigation. Those days are over. We often say a budget is a reflection of our values. Things we all agree on: public safety, our reliable infrastructure, youth programming. But it can't be something that we just say when it's easy. It has to be something that we are willing to stand behind when it is time to make hard decisions and pay for the things that we have collectively supported. For years, many of us sat on this dais and agreed that Hoboken needed more police officers, so we voted to add them. That was the right decision. But that decision comes with responsibility, because the alternative is not abstract. It means fewer walking patrols in our parks. It means scaling back e-bike patrols. It means returning to a time when our police presence did not meet the needs of our community. That's why we added more officers at the start of this year, and this budget does not cut a single police officer from our current staff. The same is true for our parks. We have all supported the acquisition, expansion, and improvement of park spaces across this city. We should be proud of that. But those parks do not maintain themselves. They require staff. They require investment. They require ongoing care so that our residents can enjoy them. This budget continues to fund that work. The same is true for recreation. A few years ago, we had a real challenge with our recreation program, especially with soccer. We made the decision to bring those programs in-house and invest in them. Today, participation has doubled. We now have close to 7,000 participants across all of our recreation programs. We aren't going to walk that back. We are not going to cut access to programs that our families clearly value. But we are also going to be fair. This budget asks that participants in our recreation programs pay their fair share, meaning the actual costs of these programs, instead of relying on taxpayers to subsidize their participation. I believe that is a more fair approach. And just to get ahead of the argument that this is a regressive tax, it is not. Period. It is a fee to participate in a program that you choose to opt into, not something that everyone uses. And more importantly, if your family is on free or reduced lunch, your child will still participate at no cost. This budget ensures that everyone has access while also being responsible to taxpayers. I recognize that tonight will be a long meeting, but it is an important one, given the decisions in front of you and their long-term impacts on our city. With the budget tonight are a number of measures for your consideration that will update certain fees to better reflect the actual costs of providing services and programs. I appreciate the council's thoughtful consideration of these proposals, which are an important part of right-sizing our revenues and putting the city on better footing. If they are not supported, then we are choosing to maintain an imbalance that shifts more of the burden onto taxpayers who may not use the services they are being asked to cover. So let's all be honest about owning that responsibility. I could walk through more examples and line items, but I would rather turn it over shortly to our Business Administrator Gonzalez and our Auditor Steve Wilcox to go into deeper detail. But before I do, I want to reiterate, there's no magic trick to bail us all out, unfortunately. This budget requires real work. That's what we were elected to do, including paying for the services that we have all voted for. I want to leave you with a few key points. First, we were handed a very difficult financial situation. That is the reality. On day one, we were looking at a 24% tax increase. Through the work of this team, we have brought that down through smart cuts, a hiring freeze, and other efficiencies to just below 19%. Is that easy to swallow? Of course not. But for years, under the previous administration, the city's budgets were artificially lowered through gimmicks, one-time fixes, and unstable practices. This budget begins to correct that, and it puts us on a path towards real long-term stability. Second, this city hall is not overstaffed. The 9 of you hopefully know that better than anyone. You call our staff, you email them, you text them during all hours, on weekends and holidays. You ask them to do more, faster, and better every single day. And they show up and they deliver. They are the reason that this city works. So let's be clear. These aren't line items in a spreadsheet. These are the people who keep Hoboken running every single day. We should support them, not undermine them. And anyone who thinks we can cut just a few staff here or there to make up a budget impact without feeling those consequences is simply not living in reality. That kind of thinking ignores what it actually takes to run a city like Hoboken, and it does a disservice to the people who show up every day to serve it. Third, Hoboken is not alone in facing these challenges. Jersey City is dealing with a deficit in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Montclair had to go to referendum to support its schools. Patterson is seeking a significant state bailout. And there are dozens more situations just like this across New Jersey. There are real pressures that municipalities are facing right now. We are not immune, and we should not pretend that we are. Fourth, let's speak plainly about where Hoboken stands. Today, we have the lowest municipal taxes in Hudson County, dollar for dollar. At the same time, we have some of the highest home values in the county. That is not something you see very often. This budget does not meaningfully change that. Today, we do not know what our neighbors might adopt, but even if this budget is adopted and as introduced, Hoboken will still have one of the lowest tax rates in Hudson County. That is the reality, and it is important that we keep that in mind as we have this conversation. And finally, this is a serious moment, and it calls for serious conversations. If the goal is to grandstand and score political points off one another, please don't waste everyone's time. It doesn't help anyone, and it's not going to save anyone's tax dollars. We all know the reality. There is a narrow lane to make adjustments, and much of this budget was set into motion long before this year. So let's be honest about that. Let's be realistic, and let's focus on being constructive. If you have questions, please ask them. If you have more amendments than what we have already adopted, please bring them forward. But do so with a clear understanding of what you are asking to change and why. I have been open throughout this entire process, and I hope that you all continue that same openness as we move towards adoption. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Business Administrator, Jennifer Gonzalez.